Hi, this is Jake from Deephaven. Previously, I demoed how to pull data from Prometheus's REST API and use that data within Deephaven. However, in that case, the data is always readily available, and you can always get more valuable information every time you pull from the REST API. Anybody who's worked with a system like Prometheus knows that data doesn't always come in this format. You might have data coming in from one-time events, such as an HTTP webhook, as with Prometheus's example. So, how can you set up a system that can take data from these one-time events and use it within Deephaven? So before we get started, if you're unfamiliar with what a webhook is, it is basically an HTTP request that a system makes to you. So in order for you to receive this, you need to have a server of your own. In this situation, I'm going to be using a Python Flask server. So we can open up the code right here, and we can scroll down and we can see right here we are defining a route to expose by the server, and we have a method that's going to be associated by this route. So what this method does is it takes the request body, it deserializes it, formats it, parses it, and pulls out the information that we want, and then it performs an update on Deephaven using the PyDeephaven package. If you're familiar with Deephaven's application mode, take note that this is not application mode. This is a Python server that is running honestly anywhere that you choose, and it is using the PyDeephaven package to perform updates on Deephaven. So we can see here we have a date time string, we have a job, we have our instance, our Prometheus query, and our status. So we'd expect to see in Deephaven a table with this information. And we can see that right here. We have our date time, our job, instance, query, and our status. So if you remember from our previous Prometheus example, we have a table that is pulling data from Prometheus just on a steady cadence. And we have that table right here. So by looking at these two tables, you might see some overlap, and there is overlap. We have an overlap with the query, job, and instance, and date time values. So naturally, we might want to think, hey, could we join these two tables together and get a representation of the value of the Prometheus query at the time that our alerts are fired? Yes, that is possible, but there's one catch. In order to do a join, you need to have exact matches on your columns. And we have three columns, our job, instance, and query, that are going to have exact matches. But the date time, that's very important, but we can't guarantee that we're going to be pulling data on the same cadence that Prometheus is going to be sending data through the webhooks. So how can we join these two tables? If you're familiar with Deephaven, you might think, oh, isn't there a method called lower bin that allows you to sort of round out these timestamps into maybe a consistent value? And yes, that's possible. You could certainly use that. You could perform an update on these two tables, make a new column with, timestamp rounded or floored, and there's going to be guaranteed to have overlap in those two columns. However, there's an easier way to do this, and that is with an AJ, or an as of join. So if we go to the docs for an as of join, we can see that it works just like a join, except there's a key paragraph right here. The last column that we're going to be matching on doesn't do an exact match, but actually does a search to find the closest values to match. So we can see that in our code right here. So we are taking our Prometheus alerts table, we're doing an AJ on it with the Prometheus metrics table, we have our job, instance, and query, which are going to be our exact matches, and then lastly we have our Prometheus datetime column, which is going to be our approximation match. So let's see what this table looks like. And there we have it. So we have a join on our two tables, we have our exact matches right here, and we have our approximation match right here. And we can see now that we have a column with the value based on the timestamp of when the alerts were fired and received. So that concludes this demo. Thank you so much for watching. Just to recap what we went over, we showed how to set up a server that can receive HTTP webhooks and use that data within Deephaven, and also how to join two tables that may not have an exact match in one of their columns. You can find the code for this along with our other Prometheus example apps in our Deephaven examples organization on GitHub, and you can also check out our developer documentation to see more of what you can do with Deephaven. Thank you so much.